Total War Rome 2 is a turn-based strategy real-time tactics video game that was recently on the news right now. It presents a very interesting case. If a game that is well known for its historical authenticity has been released for a while and then suddenly receive a patch that breaks it, would people be complaining about the game? Turns out they would, as Rome 2 is now receiving what we people usually call review bombs, which usually happens when the developers start to make some really stupid moves that piss off the community in general. But since we're talking about Rome 2, a game that the fans universally consider to be really underwhelming, and for very good reasons, I'm actually shocked that there are people who actually give a damn at all. I mean, I'm not familiar with Total War. I played the original Shogun years ago because I love the Sengoku period, and I really need to play Shogun 2 sometimes.
Shameful display!
But Rome 2 is a 5-year-old game, and while a lot of the launch issues are fixed, it is still an underwhelming game in the baseline. The only reason why people are playing Rome 2 is because of the Divided Impera mod, which significantly overhauls the game. So what's the story with Rome 2, and why is it popping on so many news outlets? Well, before we begin this video, I want to say huge thanks to Tyler Preston and Suspicious Trap for the pledges on Patreon. You guys are fantastic. According to the initial article from PCGamesN, there was a recent patch that caused a massive increase of female generals to numbers that shouldn't have been possible given the setting of the game. Many of the most prominent complaints alleged that male generals in safe games have been retroactively replaced with women, and that only women have been available to recruit from general recruitment pools. Now that is total freaking BS, and I can see why people are review bombing the game. There was a post made by a user on Steam named Chaos Puppy showing a screenshot of 5 female generals appearing in the game, played by a user named Eric. Eric can be seen playing as Egypt in this case, and as you can see, there are 5 female generals in there. Eric claimed in the comments down below that posting the campaign in question was in progress. When the update happened, everything was screwed up. That is indeed pretty terrible, and if this happened to many other users, this means that Creative Assembly made a patch that totally screwed up the spawn, or caused it to replace the generals with female versions. We'll get to the technical details later. First, let's talk about the terrible community management, which is the reason why all of this began in the first place. In a thread that began months ago when someone was merely asking the factions that will receive female generals, the moderator locked the thread and said this:
Total War games are historically authentic, not historically accurate. If having female units upsets you that much, you can either mod them out or just not play.
Okay, that is a terrible response. Since you are the community manager and you are responding to overly represented women in a historical setting, at the very least, you might be familiar with what happened with Battlefield 5. When EA told people to not buy the game, the players got really pissed off, and they actually did exactly that, not buy the game. So instead of trying to resolve the issue by figuring out why people are so mad, you instantly went on the defensive and said, oh, don't buy the game if you don't like it. This is a very lazy and immature response that will guarantee you backlash. But there was another thread in which the community manager elaborated even further on this, and the elaboration was even more stupid.
People saying that they won't buy the game because there are too many women in it is fine with us. If that's the reason, we'd rather they didn't anyway.
Well, if these players do hate women community managers, then they would have complained about the addition of female generals during the March 2018 patch, wouldn't they? It's not that there are women in it, it's that they are too prominent, which caused the experience to feel inauthentic. It's Battlefield 5 all over again. The last paragraph from the community manager just tells us all we need to know about her position.
Reasonable civil discussions don't get locked. Discussions that spiral into personal attacks and prominently feature words like cuck, SJW, feminazi, and any directions are locked for a reason. Just be nice to each other, guys, that's all.
Ooh. Boy, now I also really don't like the word cuck or SJW or feminazi because they're getting more and more cringy, but telling people to not use those specific words, not a good move. Really, really not a good move. But a twist on this entire event is that there is a little bit of an explanation for the unreasonable spawn rate. According to an update from Creative Assembly regarding the current debate about Rome 2, there have been no changes to recruitable female general spawn rates, but thanks to the Ancestry patch and the new gameplay options that it brings, the playable factions may gain more female family members via marriage. Female characters appear throughout the game but have a 10 to 15% of appearing as recruitable generals for some of the playable factions, with the exceptions of some factions. So in other words, this entire thing is is caused by Creative Assembly making a patch that blew it out of proportions, causing people to have their generals replaced by historically inauthentic female counterparts, to which the community manager responded with, "Hey, if you don't like it, don't buy the game." Did the community manager actually consult on why and or how this change can happen? Would it be reasonable to think that the community manager can communicate with the developers? Now, the spawn rate is 10 to 15% for most of the factions. I think that's a reasonable amount, at least reasonable if you want the women to actually spawn, because anything lower than that would be more historically authentic, sure, but we have less women and therefore missing the point of adding women in the first place. Which begs the question, if you're making the game to make the women spawn in a very low number and spawning them more would make the game to be inauthentic, why even add them in the first place? Is this another case of diversity? Is this another case of a corporation adding more women into the game just to earn virtue points? Well, they are successful in gaining virtue points from the press, but is it really worth it? And why didn't anyone who played Rome 2 notice this? Or maybe they did, or maybe because Rome 2 was a really underwhelming game and not a lot of people give a damn about it. Is it because most of the fans left Rome 2 and they're coming in just now just to get this game more attention after all the controversy? Well, this entire thing could have been just for attention. That or the community manager just so happened to be really bad at community managing that the game just so happened to get a lot of attention right now. That or Creative Assembly is really bad at patching their games, which is certainly true. Also, another thing that I find confusing, this entire controversy could have been fairly resolved if the community manager responded by actually explaining the game mechanics. If the community manager doesn't understand the game mechanics, they should have contact with people who do, right? This entire thing could have been less toxic if the community manager doesn't respond in such an immature fashion. The response that the game developers provided is just way too late. The damage to the community has already been done thanks to one really incompetent community manager. Does this highlight that the community manager does not play the game that the community that she managed play? I don't know. This entire thing is a mess and I'm not a Total War fan. You know what else is a mess? The hot takes from the progressive articles talking about this mess. They keep chugging and chugging and chugging. Let's take a fresh example from Kotaku because why not? So after explaining the controversy, Kotaku then cited a video from Arch Warhammer, which initially has false information that he later updated in another video, an article from One Angry Gamer, a website that occasionally have good articles, but then they also have some really stupid takes, and the Daily Stormer? I mean, goddamn, the fruits that you pick are getting lower and lower and lower. The writer illustrated their problem surprisingly accurately, saying that the issue is that the game was patched into an inauthentic mess, and the community manager just told the players that if they don't like it, then they can just play something else, with the Daily Stormer just saying a bunch of Nazi stuff because it's the Daily Stormer, what do you expect? The writer seems to have no issue with the community manager being flippant to the community and telling them that if they don't like it, they don't have to buy it, which shows dismissal over their legitimate criticisms. The writer then mocked the negative reviews on Steam, with one of them saying 0 out of 10 would not check my privilege again. That's freaking hilarious. There are also others saying that the community manager should be fired for being incompetent, even though the community manager is only relaying the message from above. Wait, what? That's even worse. That means that this isn't the community manager's fault. This is the developer's fault for not giving a damn. And if this is the community manager relaying the message from above, then shouldn't the response be the technical explanations instead of her dirt, don't buy the game, you doofus? This isn't really helping your point, writer. And you know what else isn't helping your point? Citing the Guild Wars 2 fiasco in which the developers are rightfully terminated, see my previous video for more details, and also citing the Riot Games fiasco, which the developers are also rightfully terminated.
While the circumstances are different, the broader idea is the same. Game developers didn't spoon-fed a handful of players exactly what they wanted to hear, and now their precious Fabergé skin has been cracked. They want blood.
That's a very nice reframe and projection, writer.
And of course, at the heart of it all lies a person in a position of influence. In this particular case, a woman talking about women.
Okay, writer, your attempts at being a pathetic white knight is not gonna work.
Naturally, people rallying around Rome 2 are employing the same sorts of tactics and rhetorical tricks that work for other roving bands of enraged culture warriors because, well, they worked. People got fired.
Writer, if you're gonna talk about people being fired thanks to community backlash, maybe don't cite 2 examples in which the employees are fired for very good reasons. The writer then explained how the fears from these people are unfounded, then citing Republic of Play's video on the matter. Now that video basically states the same thing as the update on Twitter, but even if that disproves the people saying that the generals are being replaced with women, that doesn't disprove the horrendous inability of the community manager to actually manage the community. That's one of the main issues that people have with this debacle, but considering that we're talking about Rome 2, that is perhaps the least troubling aspect with that game. So in conclusion, an incompetent community manager who doesn't understand about the game of which the community that she managed play blew a non-issue completely out of proportion by responding terribly to complaints and causing so much outrage to a game that the fans already didn't like in the first place. And I honestly couldn't give any less of a damn. I mean, I like Romance of the Three Kingdoms, so please make the next one actually good, and please have bug exterminators this time.